Welcome to Marketing Made Simple TV. I'm Jeff Ogden, the host of the show, and we're thrilled to have you back once again. And we've got just another awesome guest on the show, someone who's an absolute expert in what makes things go viral. And let me just tell you about him. He's Dr. Jonah Berger, and he's an assistant professor of marketing at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. He's published dozens of articles in top academic journals, and popular accounts of his work have appeared in places like the New York Times. In fact, Science Times had an article just last Sunday from him. The Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, Science, Harvard Business Review, and a whole bunch of others. He's been featured in the New York Times annual Year in Ideas, and he's been recognized in awards in both scholarship and teaching, including being called Wharton's Iron Professor. Pretty cool. At Wharton, he teaches an elective called Contagious, How Products, Behaviors, and Ideas Catch On. And he's got a book by that name, too, and he lives in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So let's welcome Dr. Berger to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, glad to have you here, and this is going to be a fun discussion because we've had a lot of pretty interesting people on here. In fact, last week we had Guy Kawasaki on. He's a pretty cool guy. But, yeah, I'll start you off the same question I asked Guy, and it's very simple. Who are you and what do you do?
So my name is Jonah Berger. I'm the author of Contagious, Why Things Catch On, and I'm a professor of marketing here at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania.
Short question, short answer. Very well done. So before we start talking about what makes things contagious and make things go viral, let's just first define what is going viral. How do you define it as an academic?
So I think when we think about things going viral, we often think about the web. We think about videos like Gangnam Style or the Harlem Shake. But for most of your listeners, what's more important is actually not what's on the web and not billions of views. For most small companies, entrepreneurs, nonprofits, it's really about how can you turn your existing customers into advocates? How can you bring in 1, 2, or even 3 more new customers from each existing customer? And while the web is definitely important, when you look at the data, actually only about 7% of all word of mouth is online. Not 70, not 17, only about 7. People are often surprised at that number. They say, wait, but what do you mean? I write on Twitter all the time. And maybe you do, maybe you love Facebook, but actually we spend much more time offline. We have breakfast with our family, lunch with our colleagues at work, and after work we grab a drink with our friends. And so most word of mouth is actually offline and face-to-face communication. And so while viral is definitely important, what I think is more important is how can you get people to talk about and share your ideas, whether they're online or offline, and whether there are thousands of them or just dozens of them. Because even if you're a small company, leveraging word of mouth is really important.
It's a good point, and certainly a very inexpensive way to market your business is through word of mouth, because it doesn't really cost anything. It may be a lot of work, but
yeah.
So, and I find it interesting that so much of it takes place offline, and I think that's a very good point to bring out. But a lot of people think, you know, with Harlem Shake and Gangnam Style, I mean, you just get lucky, right? Babies, cats, that goes viral, right? Isn't it just about getting lucky, or is there a science behind it?
You know, if you look around on the web, most social media gurus will say something like, oh, there's no way to guarantee you'll go viral. There's no formula behind it. Is there a formula behind 1 billion hits? No. But is it random or luck? That's actually wrong also. We've spent now over a decade studying why people talk about and share things, and we found that it's not random and that it's not luck. There's a science behind it, the science of conversation, the psychology of talk. There are motivational drivers and other factors that cause people to talk and share repeatedly. And so what we've done in this book is we've boiled down this decade worth of research into 6 key principles that drive people to talk and share. 6 key things that we've seen across industries, across online as well as offline. Whether you're talking about B2C, whether you're talking about small businesses or large businesses, or you're talking about B2B, the same key factors came up again and again. And so it's almost like a recipe, a set of ingredients that can help make people more likely to talk about or share your message.
Very interesting. You know, I appreciate the ideas in your book of the 6 steps. Can you just pick out one of the concepts from your book and just share it with the audience that talks about one of the main ways that things become contagious?
Sure. So I'll use an example that most of us are familiar with. A couple years ago, there was a really popular song on the web. It was called Friday. It was by a girl named Rebecca Black. And people hate this song. If you look at the comments on the web, some people will say, this is the worst song ever. It's terrible. Yet it has over 300 million views. And so one question people often ask is, well, what made Rebecca Black viral? Why do so many people talk about and share this thing if they hate it? If you haven't seen the song, you can go check it out. It's about a 16-year-old girl going to school, figuring out whether to sit in the front seat or the back seat of her friend's car. It's not the greatest song ever, but why did so many people share it? Well, if you go look at the data, you'll actually see an interesting pattern. So it's pretty flat, and then it goes up in attention, then it goes back down again, then it goes back up, then it goes back down again, then it goes back up and back down again. And if you look closer, you'll notice the spikes aren't random. It's not that they happen with just chance. If you actually look at them, they're 7 days apart. Every 7 days is a spike. And when you look closer at the spikes, you'll notice that they're all on Friday. And that song, Friday, it's the name of her song, is equally bad every day of the week. It's bad on Monday, it's bad on Tuesday, bad on Wednesday, bad on Thursday, bad on Friday. But Friday provides a reminder, what psychologists would call a trigger in the environment, to make us think about it, search for it, and share it with others. You can think about other examples like this. So if I said peanut butter and, most of your listeners would probably say jelly. Or if I said rum and, they might think about Coke. And so peanut butter is like a little advertisement for jelly. It's not actually there, but thinking about one thing makes you think about related ideas. And that's what psychologists would call a trigger, and trigger is just one of the key steps that we point out drives people to talk and share.
Interesting that triggers, and peanut butter and jelly and Coke and rum was a good example. So now you had an article in Science Times recently, and the article talked about how people always think the news is about bad news. And that what's newsworthy is bad news. The tragedies, the massive car accidents, the people stuck, But you found that on social networks, people like to share good news. What did you learn about why people share good news as opposed to what people think normally is news?
So a couple things. So first of all, one reason people share information is because of how it makes them look. So we talk about things that make us look smart and in the know, make us look like insiders or special, like we have status. When you get upgraded to first class, for example, you tell everybody, because it makes you look cool. Or even, when you get special service from a local restaurant, or you get treated specially by a service provider, you want to tell other people because you look special. And so if you think about it, people are more likely to share positive than negative things because negative things don't particularly make them look good. Being a Debbie Downer all the time isn't the type of person most people want to hang out with. And so particularly when we're talking about ourselves, there's a bias to say positive things, to make ourselves look good rather than look bad. But we analyzed over 6 months of New York Times articles, over 7,000 pieces of content, and we found that yes, positive is shared more than negative. Positive articles are more likely to make the most emailed list than negative ones, but it's also more complicated than that. There are actually some negative emotions that increase sharing because they activate us or arouse us. And even some positive emotions can decrease sharing because they deactivate us. And so sure enough, there's a bonus for sharing positive things. We're more likely to share positive and negative, but it's also richer and more nuanced than that.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think I saw in the article that articles from the science section are shared quite often. And I think you find that the information that's surprising, that you didn't expect, or just like stretches your mind, that's the kind of stuff you want to share.
We found that articles, for example, that activated the emotion of awe, so awe-inspiring articles, many of the Science Times articles activated that emotion, encourage people to share because they're just so amazed that they have to pass it on to others.
Very good point. Now, we probably have a lot of business owners watching this show. So what would you say to them? How can they drive more sales and make things happen and get things to go viral in their businesses? What kind of tips can you give business owners?
So you might have thought that it was about advertising. You had to have a big advertising budget. You might have thought it was about special people and finding those influential users or getting an influential blogger or celebrity to talk about your service. But what we talk about in the book is you don't need those things. Actually, word of mouth is much more effective than traditional advertising, both in terms of its effectiveness, it's over 10 times as effective, and much more cost effective. And actually, you don't need influentials either. They certainly help. If you find someone who has a lot of followers and they'll talk about your product, that's great. But even if you don't find those people, you can get lots of people to talk about and share your message by understanding what drives people to talk and share. By building on those underlying motivators or psychological drivers of transmission, whether it's social currency, how sharing makes us look, whether it's emotion, when we share, we care, whether it's practical value about sharing useful information. Each of the key steps, and we have a whole chapter on each of them in the book Contagious, talks about how business owners can apply these things to get their products and ideas to catch on. Even if you don't have a budget, you can get lots of people talking and sharing if you understand why they talk and share in the first place.
That's great advice, of really understanding why people share things and what motivates them to share. And I think that as more people watching the show can understand what motivates people, the more success they're going to have in their business. So let's just talk about if people want to do this, what are like the top 3 things that they should know that they could take away from this and say, okay, I want to make something happen in my business. I can put my head around 3 things. What are the 3 things I should do?
I wish I could say there were just 3. The book talks about 6, but since you asked for 3, I'll give you 3. So first of all, don't think about advertising. Think about word of mouth. Think about how you can get people to talk and share. Contagious, the book, has a great set of principles, these 6 ideas: social currency, triggers, emotion, public, practical value, and stories to help you do that. And by understanding why people talk and share, you can design both the products themselves, so the features of the product. For example, my book cover's orange. We wanted to make it more publicly observable. So not just the features of the product, but also the campaigns you build around those products to encourage people to talk and share. So I'd say 1, focus on word of mouth rather than advertising. 2, pick up a copy of Contagious. It'll tell you those 6 tips to get your product or idea to catch on. And 3, think less about sales and more about conversations. How can you put yourself in consumer conversations? No one wants to sell more of your product. They just want to help their friends out or make themselves look good. But along the way, if your product can be part of that conversation, they're happy to talk about you. You look at things like blend tech, for example. People don't share the Will It Blend videos because they want to advertise blenders. They share it because it's really amazing, remarkable content. It makes them look good. It has social currency. But along the way, blend tech comes for the ride. And so again, it's not about advertising, it's about word of mouth. Pick up Contagious and build campaigns that put you part of the conversation rather than just trying to sell something directly.
Very good advice, and certainly word of mouth is extremely powerful advertising if the people watching the show can harness it. It's a great way to get the equivalent of a Super Bowl ad without spending the money. So, well, good. Well, it's been wonderful talking to you, Dr. Berger. Where can our viewers learn more about you, your book, and the kind of work you do with?
So I have a website. It's Jonah, J-O-N-A-H, Berger, B-E-R-G-E-R.com. It's got a couple things on it. First of all, you can find where to buy the book there. It's on Amazon as well as all major retailers, but there are links there. But you'll also find 2 other things. You'll find a set of free resources. There's a workbook that you can download to help you apply these ideas to your small business. Or even if you're a large business, you can download it to work on it with your team. So there's that workbook and a bunch of other free resources. And there are also all the academic papers that this research is based on and that the book is based on. They're all there on the website. So you can get a good sense of the research behind these ideas and how to apply them. And then finally, outside of jonahberger.com, if you're interested in Twitter, you can follow me at J1Berger, where I tweet about these sort of issues every day.
I want to thank Dr. Jonah Berger for being a great guest on the show. Some great principles of word-of-mouth marketing. I certainly suggest you pick up his book, Contagious, and read it because he's got some great insights. And the thing I love with these academics, it's based on science. It's not just theory, but they actually do a lot of testing. I want to remind you that Marketing Made Simple TV premieres every Thursday at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Before we go, we want to thank our sponsors because sponsors make the show possible. We have Avatage, a great content marketing company, especially video content, digitalethos.org, educational content, Free, a nonprofit, Communication Strategy Group, public relations, brand telling, very good stuff, Eloqua, the world's largest revenue marketing software firm, and lastly, Watchitoo, who provides this great platform for our TV on the web show. As you'll see, Marketing Made Simple TV is a TV show that happens to live on the web. A reminder again, we run every Thursday at noon. And so until next week, we'll see you next time on Marketing Made Simple TV.